The science fiction genre has seen many heavy hitters through the decades: Star Wars, The Matrix, Avatar, and most recently the two-part adaptation of Dune. Hidden amongst these franchise juggernauts, we have the small-scale efforts that carve out their own niche within the futuristic landscape. Some go for a more dystopian vision, while others make great use of an internalized setting. When you take on a standalone sci-fi story, you've got to make it count on the first try, and 2011's Source Code, directed by Duncan Jones, is one of the finest modern examples. With a few sources of inspiration, simplified special effects, and a mind-bending mystery, this is one release you don't want to miss. Army Captain Colter Stevens, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, wakes up on a train to Chicago, but from the moment he looks out the window and spots a false reflection, all is not as it seems. It turns out that the train is a virtual construct, the site of a bomb attack earlier that day. Reliving the same 8 minutes over and over again, Colter is pressed into finding the man responsible. As we come to learn, he has no choice in the matter, being strapped into a machine at an unknown location. Right from the start, there's a tantalising mystery that raises all sorts of questions. How did Colter get there? Is the train real? What about the passengers? Did this terror attack really happen, or is it just a simulation? Tossing the audience into the protagonist's perspective right from the offset places us directly into a personal journey, gradually taking on information the same way he does. The entire plot takes place in just a few locations: on the train, off the train, and at the unnamed military office. Source Code pulls everything it needs from this basic setting. Sure, there may be a brief showing of a second bomb going off in the city centre, but it keeps things laser focused on a single location without deviating into unnecessary plot threads. The pace is always pushing forward as Colter tries to find the bomber. In turn, we also learn the finer details of his character. Background detail is woven in seamlessly through conversations and other interactions, which differ each time we return to the train. Christina, played by Michelle Monaghan, serves as a frequent companion on board, but we also engage with Colter's father Donald, voiced by Scott Bakula. Finally, we have Colter's military handler, Captain Colleen Goodwin, played by Vera Farmiga. This smaller scale also applies to the cinematography. Aside from some aerial shots of the train, the perspective is always locked on Colter, allowing Jake to show off the character's confusion, doubt, and frustration with many close-up shots. The military officials are often viewed through screens, peering over Colter's shoulder inside the construct. In this way, the budget is kept low, and we never lose track of the primary plot thread. Around the halfway mark, Colter rebels, trying to find out how he got into this repeating situation. You and I would do the same thing. Being on an 8-minute timer, he is constantly rushing to find more details, maintaining the film's quick pace. As the narrative presses onward, the underlying ethical dilemma is always present. Is it right to put one individual through such a torturous existence to prevent further deaths? Caught somewhere between life and death, the military machine would argue yes, but thanks to Jake Gyllenhaal's strong performance, the audience is always compelled to empathise, especially in the second act. The more Colter fights, the worse things get, with the military even using his own family against him with a funeral recording. Colter died in a helicopter crash while serving overseas, and his body is now being used in a controversial experiment, showing how he is treated as little more than a reusable component in a complex machine. Many of us would be firmly against this kind of exploitation. The leader of the project, Jeffrey Wright's Dr. Rutledge, is obsessed with results to the point that he turns a blind eye to Colter's ordeal. There is a hint of Minority Report in the film, trying to detect a crime before it happens. After many attempts and going through the same fiery death over and over, Colter eventually discovers the real bomber and his plans to detonate a second dirty explosive within the city centre. Derek Frost is hidden in plain sight, maintaining an unassuming presence throughout, but like with other elements, his true identity slowly comes into view. Much like real-world incidents, trying to spot a potential perpetrator is incredibly difficult, but the eventual payoff, as Colter catches and apprehends Frost with the train still in motion, is incredibly satisfying. At less than 90 minutes long, Source Code doesn't waste any time. If there's one problem I have with the film, it's how some characters, especially the military officers, could have had a bit more depth. Learning the backstories for both Goodwin and Rutledge could have tied in well with Colter's character, emphasizing how the rules and ethics differ as you go up the chain of command, from a simple soldier to high-ranking bureaucrats. With that said, they still have key roles to play in the story. As the film heads into the final act, Colleen has a heart-to-heart with Coulter, eventually deciding to grant his final wish, creating the best possible future before he is unplugged for good. All he wants is to feel human in his last moments. Waiting until Goodwin is off record is a very deliberate choice. It shows how Coulter has compelled her to show some sympathy, rather than absolute devotion to her work. We're treated to a great transition through the eyes as Coulter willingly plugs himself back into the machine. He gets to make his own reality before being terminated, but like any mind-bending story, source code has one final stroke to deliver. At first, you believe that the protagonist will get to continue his ideal existence in the virtual realm, but instead his concluding act creates a new timeline, averting the bomb explosion and leaving every passenger happy and content. Coulter and Christina leave the train and come to a large reflective art piece. The ending brings out that sense of shared humanity, which is often crucial for any science fiction story. Thanks to strong marketing and highly positive reviews, Source Code was rewarded handsomely at the box office, making $147 million against a $31 million budget. If you're able to immerse the audience, have them follow the story with intrigue, and make the most of a smaller setting, you will reap the benefits. Other science fiction films took on a similar approach. 3 years later, Edge of Tomorrow, or Live, Die, Repeat, utilised a similar time-bending structure in the midst of an alien war. Despite not being as widely accepted by the masses, it still stood out in 2014 for its unique concept. Science fiction films often like to go big, telling a grand space opera while building a long-running franchise, but this often results in diminishing returns. When you look at other releases like Jupiter Ascending, Valerian the City of a Thousand Planets, and the recent Rebel Moon, it's all too easy to bloat out the budget and end up making a heavy loss or not backing up your visuals with substance. Sometimes all you need is a capable suite of special effects, simple yet effective characters, and a curious mystery that keeps the viewer guessing. Source Code follows these lessons to a T, and it remains highly regarded over a decade later. Thanks for watching. Source Code was a film I missed back in 2011. It really stood out from the many recent films I've watched, and not just in the science fiction genre. Got any other underrated sci-fi flicks to check out? Stick them in the comments below. You can find more video essays like this one on my channel.